Alright guys, welcome on into the stream. Let me know if you can hear me and see me, if everything sounds alright. So tonight what I wanted to do is I wanted to do a tier listing. And I wanted to do a tier listing of my favorite video game systems. And just go from there. Now, let me see if I can bring this down for a second. All right, there we go. Now, with some of these game systems, I do not know what the hell they are. I do not recognize some of these game systems. And so for some of them, I may skip them. But for the ones I do recognize, which will be most of the mainstream ones, I will put those in a tier. Now, you guys can feel free to leave your suggestions and comments. Maybe even influence and educate me on why a particular system may rank higher or lower, you know, and it might swing my opinion. Anyway, yeah, feel free to share your gaming stories with any particular systems that are your favorites. Well, I'm gonna get this kicked off in just a second. Okay, all right. So let me see. And thank goodness a good majority of these are in chronological order. Now, I will say the only game console I am familiar with some of these older game systems that predate the original Nintendo is the Atari. I've only known maybe a cousin or an aunt and uncle that had an Atari. It wasn't that great, but it was better than nothing. So I will rank it down here with a C, only because I mean, like I said, it was better than nothing, and it was still more fun to go play outside than play on the Atari. As for some of these other consoles like the Magnavox, Coleco, the previous Ataris, I don't really know anything about those, and so I'm not going to rank those. But for me, especially since I got into the world of emulators and kind of went back and played a lot of older games, I never found myself going back to play either any games on the Magnavox, Coleco, or the older Atari versions. Even the Nintendo Game & Watch, like, I didn't care to go back from that. For the most part, my gaming, I guess, career or life started with the Super Nintendo and Nintendo. So that's where I'm going to start off. But everything else, I'm going to leave them off the list. Oh, even the Commodore. Yeah. Yikes. But anyway, all right, off the rip, I'm going to rank Nintendo, the original Nintendo Entertainment System. That's going to get an S. That's going to be S tier for me. And one of the main reasons why I consider this top tier above many other systems is the variety of games. I think variety in games and style of games is something that many consoles have struggled with forever. But I will say that on the Nintendo Entertainment System, there were so many different types of video games. And maybe it was, well, I don't want to say it was a budget issue, because to my understanding, game developers and studios have always been struggling. I think that is one of the main reasons why we have Final Fantasy, because Square was going out of business, and I think Final Fantasy was their final game that they were going to make before they went out of business. Unfortunately, it was a hit. And so they made a sequel, which again, that was like, it was the same thing. So I will put Nintendo on top in S tier because of the variety and the type of games that were available on that system. Let me see. Moving down, what do we have? The Sega Master System. I don't really know anything about the Master System. I never played it, except, you know, that it was a competitor to Nintendo. And because I never played it, I don't know what games were on it. I'm gonna have to rank this maybe like a B, because I was familiar with it, and I do know some games that were on it, but I never felt compelled to either play the Sega Master System emulation or even look out and go get the system. So I'm gonna keep that down there. Let me see. I don't want to rank the Lynx or the because it has this other Neo Geo, the SNK system before I rank the actual SNK game. All right, Neo Geo. All right, so aside from Nintendo, they have the Game Boy. So I will rank Game Boy, the original Game Boy. I'm gonna put this up here in S tier as well, because this was like the first handheld portable console or portable game thing. Next to this, the only thing you had for like handheld video games were those cheap little Tiger handheld things, and that was some bullshit. But when Game Boy came along, like the original Game Boy came along, it was really cool. There was nothing like it. And so I remember my cousin had one, and I just spent hours and hours and hours playing this game. It was like having a Nintendo in your hand. So yeah, original NES system, Game Boy, easy S's, easy S tiers. Game Boy Pocket, I'm not gonna rank this because I mean it's just a smaller version of the Game Boy. Let me see, where's the Sega Genesis at? Okay, because they're doing like multiple Sega Genesis on here. All right, so the original Sega Genesis, I will rank this as, oh man, Jesus. All right, I'm gonna give this a B. I'm gonna rank this B tier. Now, don't get me wrong, I love the Sega Genesis. Sega Genesis was the one of the systems that my brother and I, we had got, you know, jumping into the 16-bit era. We had the Sega Genesis before we had Super Nintendo. Now, I wanted a Super Nintendo. I think for a lot of kids, when they seen like the 16-bit games come out, they wanted either the Sega Genesis or the Super Nintendo. But out of the both of them, I wanted the Super Nintendo because of Mario. Now, I think Sega did a great job advertising their console with Sonic the Hedgehog. That was a huge seller. But ultimately at the end of the day, there was just something magical about Super Nintendo. Like, it had the colors, you know, the characters, you know, everything that gamers wanted, including Legend of Zelda. I was a huge Zelda fan, and so I wanted Super Nintendo mainly for those games, Mario and Zelda. But Sega Genesis, it was like okay, but I don't know. There was just, it didn't have, the Sega just didn't have the games that I really, or yeah, it didn't have the franchises I wanted. So yeah, I will rank the Genesis as a B. And it doesn't mean it was a bad console, but as far as hardware capabilities, it just didn't match up with the Super Nintendo. And yeah, I mean, there were some really, really good games that were on Sega Genesis. So y'all can leave your thoughts in the comment section. Let me know what you thought about the console war between Sega and Super Nintendo, because it was a big deal. So with Super Nintendo, I'll rank that an A. Super Nintendo, it followed in the same footsteps as the original Nintendo. There was a great variety in games. You know, great variety, a huge definite upgrade to the original NES system. And I think it was my introduction into like a lot of Japanese games, because with the original Nintendo and even the Sega Genesis, I didn't think about games being made in Japan. And so it wasn't until the Super Nintendo that I realized that there were games that were made for America, but then there were games that were specifically made in Japan. And you really find that out when you start jumping into RPGs, because I believe the Super Nintendo was the first system where I got into RPGs and really like fell in love with that genre. Now, I do kind of feel like moving this up to an S tier, but I'm just gonna keep it A tier for right now. Let me see. Coming up next, here we go. The Neo Geo. Now, look, I remember the Neo Geo mainly because when me and my brother, we would go to the when he would take me to the arcade, or even my dad, we would go to the arcade. We would see all these like really cool games like Samurai Showdown, Fatal Fury, King of Fighters, and things of that nature. And so Neo Geo was the system that it allowed you to play arcade games at home. So the graphics between that and the Sega Genesis, and Super Nintendo, like there was no comparison. Everybody wanted a Neo Geo. Neo Geo was a big fucking deal. The only problem was they were so fucking expensive. Nobody could afford a Neo Geo. If you had a friend that had a Neo Geo, like they were lucky or they were rich, because I believe the console was like $600 or $700, and then the games were like $500 a pop. And that's literally because you had the arcade machine in your house. Couldn't ask for anything else. Like back in the day when arcades were a big deal, that's what people wanted. People wanted the arcade in their home, and Neo Geo delivered on that, but nobody could afford it. So I will rank this. This should be in like C tier, but the games are really, really good. But my thing was like I never really truly got the opportunity to experience Neo Geo until emulation. So that was like one of those systems that I actually had to go back to years later to have the opportunity to play those games. I'll rank the same thing with Neo Geo CD because essentially it's the same thing. They just expanded it into CDs so that they could have better graphics in their games. Let me see what else. 32X by Sega Genesis. I think this was when Sega was trying to compete with, because I don't think the PlayStation was out by then. I can't remember. All I know is like bits were a big deal, and so Sega Genesis was 16-bit. Super Nintendo was 16-bit, and so now they were like, oh, we got 32 bits now. It's double the power, better looking games. And so they start pushing Sega. They start pushing 32X on everybody, and I don't know too many people that had this 32-bit add-on. You know, actually, I don't know. I don't even think there were that many games for it either. So I'm gonna rank this down here with D. Piece of crap. Let me see. Now, Sega wasn't the only one that was pumping out pieces of crap consoles and game machines. We also have the Virtual Boy from Nintendo. I don't know anybody that owned this, but I do remember when I seen this as a kid, I was like, oh, this looks stupid. And yeah, I don't really have any fond memories or any memories of this, except for I may have had one friend that had it and he said it sucked. So but yeah, y'all let me know what y'all think. If you know anybody with 32X or a Virtual Boy. Now, I think the 90s was a really strange period for gaming. I wouldn't even, well, not just the 90s and the 80s, because it seemed like a lot of game consoles were adding on like all these extra features and shit. Like Nintendo, the original Nintendo, I remember they had the Power Glove, and we always used to watch the commercial from, the commercial, and then there was that movie with the boy who was trying to go to the Super Mario convention, and they had like this little Power Glove thing in there, and it made everybody want to have a Power Glove. But yeah, so 32X, Virtual Boy, Power Glove, D tier, trash. All right, what else? All right, so there were other variations of the Sega Genesis, like the mini or the small one. I'm not gonna worry about that because it was essentially the same thing. Atari Jaguar. Oh man. All right, so Atari Jaguar. This was the first 64-bit system. They advertised this as being 64-bit, and you know, like we said, graphics, 8 bits, that was all the rage. Everybody wanted one. But from what I can remember from game magazines and stuff, the games didn't look that great. And I remember the controller was like fucked up. It was like really big and ugly. And that's kind of odd, because I think that was like the main downfall with the game console, was they went like a non-traditional way with the controller. And for the most part, most game consoles, they had an easy to use controller, D-pad on one side and maybe 3 or 4 buttons on the other side, and you just press buttons to play the game. But with the Jaguar, I believe the controller was like a calculator or something. It looked like a calculator. But I'm gonna go ahead and rank this down here on D tier. It's trash. I think maybe the only good game that was on the Atari Jaguar was Rayman. And yeah, I maybe Rayman, and maybe they had like Pit Fighter or Mortal Kombat or something like that. But yeah, I don't think anybody really cared for the Jaguar. And then of course Jaguar was following suit with everybody else that was trying to do like a add-on and stuff, and they had the Jaguar CD. I'll put that down there as trash as well, because you know, that wasn't like, as a kid, when you would like fantasize about a game console or games you wanted to play, I don't think anybody was thinking about a Jaguar or a Jaguar CD. I can't think of or imagine a kid going to their parent and saying, I want an Atari Jaguar. You know, maybe I want a Neo Geo, but not an Atari Jaguar. CDI. Oh, yikes. Yikes. Y'all let me know if y'all can remember CDI. Now, CDI was another CD-based console. This, I think, was in the early mid-90s, I think. Right before PlayStation came out. Because CD gaming was starting to become new, but PlayStation hadn't been out, or it hadn't been revealed, so nobody knew what Sony was doing. But CDI tried to advertise, like, you know, full motion videos and realistic graphics and all that other bullshit, and their console was really, really bad. The only game I can really think of that was on CDI was the Legend of Zelda game, and I only know that from watching other game videos of people talking about it. And so I've never really had any experience with CDI, just saw a bunch of videos on it, maybe seen something about it in a magazine, but it looked awful. Even the Legend of Zelda game that I've seen on there looked incredibly bad. But let's keep things going. Where's the Game Gear at? Game Gear, I will rank this B tier. Wasn't as good as it was kind of good as the Game Boy, but I remember the thing that killed the Game Gear were the fucking batteries. My cousin had one, and I remember we would only play it for maybe a couple of hours, and then the batteries would die. And then you would have to go out and buy more batteries, which was hella expensive. So I will rank that as B tier. It wasn't terrible. It would get maybe an A tier, but the batteries sucked. I mean, you would spend so much money trying to get batteries on it. It's ridiculous. You said you hate handhelds? I didn't have a problem with handhelds. And that's why I ranked Game Boy up there, because Game Boy, I felt like, was the main handheld that did it right. It had good battery life, decent games. The only thing I didn't like about Game Boy was that it didn't have color. And by the time they had the Game Boy Color, by the time that came out, I was kind of over handheld gaming like that. Like, I think the only Game Boy Color games I got was, or my brother got, was like the Legend of Zelda, Seasons of the something, Oracle or something like that. All right, let me see. What do we have? Sega CD. Ooh, yikes. Sega CD, I'll put right here in C tier. It wasn't great. Didn't really do anything for the system. You could go without it. Waste of money. There weren't that many games on it. I think when it did come out and you've seen games like Sewer Shark or maybe some FMV in a game, it was kind of like, ooh, ah. But once you play them, it was nothing special. So C tier, right above crap. Or I guess C tier would be crap. And then D tier is complete trash. And B tier is like, okay. Let me see. What else we got? Ooh. I guess we'll go ahead and jump into 3D with the original PlayStation. Let me see. Where is it at? Here it is. Sony PlayStation. Easy S tier. Easy S tier. PlayStation came out. It was a big fucking deal. When PlayStation hit the scene and everybody seen the graphics for the 3D games that were out. Let me think. What were some early PlayStation games? There was Toshinden, Ridge Racer, Jumping Flash. There was a skating Extreme. No, was it? No, it wasn't Extreme G. There was some skating game that I remember. Oh, we're not even getting to Final Fantasy VII. The Metal Gear Solid? Yeah. Oh man. And that was the other thing too with PlayStation. So much variety. There was so much variety in the games that were available for the original PlayStation. It was ridiculous. Crash Bandicoot, yes. Tony Hawk. Tony Hawk was one of the skating games on the original PlayStation, but it's not the game that I'm thinking about. The game I'm thinking about it was like you would race. It was kind of like Road Rash, where you would race down these hills or whatever, and you could knock your opponent onto the ground. Nah, it wasn't Twisted Metal, but Twisted Metal was a good game on PlayStation. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. How many classics were made on the original PlayStation system? So yeah, so I would rank that easy S tier. Sega Saturn. I remember Sega Saturn coming out, and it was exciting, but it wasn't as exciting as the PlayStation. Once again, good console, great games were on it. A lot of Capcom games. What was it? It was like this jester or clown flying in the sky. Knights. Yeah. Sega Saturn had Knights. And I believe, did Sega Saturn have the first 3D Sonic? Or maybe it was in development. They just didn't finish it. I can't remember. I can't remember if there were any Sega Saturn games or Sonic games on the Sega Saturn. Yeah, Sega Saturn, it got replaced by the Dreamcast really fast. And that was only because they couldn't compete. But yeah, I rank Sega Saturn as B tier. It was a great system, but it just couldn't, I don't know, it couldn't compete with the PlayStation. And then of course, the Nintendo 64. When Nintendo 64 came out, that was a big deal too, because there was a lot of hype behind the 64. Originally, it was called the Ultra 64. I think the first time I maybe heard about it was going to the arcade with my brother, and we saw Killer Instinct. And like, for anybody who grew up going to the arcade, like when you go into the arcade, a lot of times you would see like the new latest games that were coming out. But Nintendo had like this genius idea that they were going to promote their latest system from the games that were being displayed in the arcade. And so when you would walk in, it's very like loud because random games are playing, but you would see Killer Instinct. Let me see if I can pull this up. Yeah, so you would walk into the arcade, and then the announcer in Killer Instinct has like this monstrous, thunderous voice.
Available for your home in 1995. Only on Nintendo Ultra 64. Killer Instinct.
So when you would walk into the arcade and you would hear that, and it'd be like, coming to home consoles in 19 whatever on the Ultra 64, you were like, holy shit, what the fuck is an Ultra 64? And then when you see Killer Instinct and you see the graphics that were on it compared to, you know, 2D and all the other shit that was out there, I was like, I gotta have this system. So yeah, so having an Ultra 64 was on everybody's, like, you know, on everybody's list, everybody's dream list. And you know, all the game magazines was advertising all the games that were coming out and everything. But I remember it got delayed, and it kept getting delayed, and then they changed it to the Nintendo 64. And so finally, when Nintendo 64 dropped, they had Mario 64, which was really, really cool. I didn't get the 64, but my brother did. I ended up later getting a PlayStation. And now, like, as a kid, I remember I was excited about it because it was a really cool system. But looking back, like in retrospect, Nintendo 64 wasn't that great of a system. It had very few games, good games on it. But comparing it to the variety of games that were available on PlayStation or even the Sega Saturn, those systems were way better. Yeah, N64 had Mario 64, they had Ocarina of Time, there was Super Smash Brothers, but the games, it lacked games. It lacked RPGs. And I think as a kid, I kind of forced I think not just me, I think a lot of people forced themselves to like the system. Mainly because they had the 4 multiplayer, you know, thing. There was Mario Kart, Diddy Kong Racing. But when you really think about it, if you had like all the different games, it wasn't that great of a system. Yeah, the only games that were somewhat decent were the ones that were developed by Nintendo. You said I'm tripping? Nah, bruh. Think about it. Think about all the games that were available on PlayStation and how they played, and think about what was offered on Nintendo. And partially one of the reasons why the N64 wasn't that great was because of its limitations with the cartridges. You said Banjo-Kazooie and GoldenEye? That's what I'm saying. Like, guys, y'all can name, there's like 10 good games. There's like 10 good games on Nintendo 64. All made by Nintendo. Versus the maybe 50 games on PlayStation. So, I gotta give Nintendo 64 right here, B tier. It's right there next to Sega Saturn. Nintendo 64 is not. Let me put it like this: N64 is not better than Super Nintendo. Tell me that. If you like grew up playing Super Nintendo, tell me the Nintendo 64 was better than Super Nintendo. So, B tier. B tier doesn't mean it's terrible. It was a good enough system. But for what Nintendo advertised it to be versus what we got, nah. And check it out. I just showed y'all that trailer for Killer Instinct. On Nintendo 64, we got Killer Instinct Gold. No FMV sequences. You didn't get the arcade experience with Nintendo 64. So that's why I gotta put Nintendo in B tier, or 64 in B tier. It wasn't better than Super Nintendo. It didn't have the variety that the PlayStation 1 had. And there was only, you can count on two hands how many good games they had. Which would be like Smash Brothers, Ocarina of Time, Super Mario 64, GoldenEye, Mario Kart, Diddy Kong Racing, Banjo-Kazooie, and whatever else you want to put there. But every other game after that wasn't that good. Extreme G, what else did they have? Blast Corps. Yeah, there wasn't a lot of good Nintendo 64 games. So Star Fox 64. Yeah, Star Fox 64 is like one of those top 10. Same with Mario Party. F-Zero X? Nah. Wave Race? Yeah, Wave Race was fun for like a week. Now, one thing I will give to Nintendo 64 was they could make some damn good wrestling games. Those wrestling games on there were fun. Especially WCW NWO Revenge. Yeah. And with the 4-player, oh yeah. I might move that up. I might move Nintendo 64 up to A tier just for the wrestling games alone. But nah, we'll keep it at B tier for now. All right, we're gonna go ahead and keep things going. Let me see what else. 3DO. 3DO was like another one of those systems that came out that was very similar to Jaguar CDI. It advertised like real 3D graphics or realistic graphics. As far as I know, none of my friends own one. Nobody wanted one. So I'll put the 3DO down in D tier. Trash. All right, where are we going? Neo Geo Pocket. It wasn't trash, but we'll just put it as C tier. Crap. Because it wasn't better than the Game Boy. It wasn't better than the Game Gear. So C tier. All right, let me see what else. All right, I guess we're getting into the second generation of 3D systems, 3D consoles. Right here, PlayStation 2, S tier, easy. PlayStation 2 was like a great follow-up to the original PlayStation. Did everything the original PlayStation did, but better. Better graphics, better game variety, DVDs. It played movies. And that was something that was really cool with the original PlayStation. You could put CDs in there. It could play your music. But yeah, PlayStation 2, definite S tier. Great system. Can't say anything bad about it. A lot of the top tier games that were on the original PlayStation that they made sequels for, they did sequels on PlayStation 2, and the sequels were just as good or even better than the originals. So can't say anything bad about it. I've been playing like the PlayStation 2 emulation. A lot of the games still hold up today. So very, very good. Let me see. What else came out around this time? Oh, the Dreamcast. Whew. Oh man. The Dreamcast was a great system. So many arcade style games. And then they took after Nintendo with the multi-4 input. So it was like you could play 4-player games. It also had online capabilities, in which I don't think anybody took advantage of that. Maybe to play Phantasy Star, but nah. These definitely one of those consoles that a lot of people wanted when it came out. It had like Crazy Taxi, Ready to Rumble, a lot of great games available for it. Sonic Adventure, along with Sonic Adventure 2. So I want to rank this up here as like A tier, because it's definitely not S tier. I want to rank this as A tier, but I can't. I have to put this down here at B tier, because although the Dreamcast was good, it was just like all the other game consoles in B tier. It was good enough. it was good enough, but it wasn't like the console that I really wanted. You know, I think PlayStation 2 was the system that I wanted, as well as a lot of other people. Oh yes, it did have Marvel vs. Capcom 2. You know what? And that's Marvel vs. Capcom 2 is my favorite fighting game of all time. I feel like I could move this up just because of that. And you know what? Yes, I will move the Dreamcast up to A tier. Only because of two things. Marvel vs. Capcom 2, because that was probably one of the only games that I played on the Dreamcast. Although I had like a plethora of games. But Dreamcast gets put into A tier mainly because you could pirate the games. And that was like, when I found that out, that you could go to like a barbershop and there'd be like a bootleg guy, and he would have like a one of those CD books, and he would open up the CD book and you could buy Dreamcast game for $5 or $10. I was like, hell yeah, sold. You know, if you didn't have to pay 60 or 70 bucks for a game and you could get pirated Dreamcast games, that instantly puts you in A tier. So yeah, Jet Set Radio, Power Stone, a lot of good games on Dreamcast. So yeah, it gets moved up because of Marvel vs. Capcom 2, and for the fact that the games could be easily pirated. I think with the PlayStation 1, the original PlayStation 1, you could pirate the games, but you needed like a mod disc and you needed to switch things out, and it was a headache. PlayStation 2, I don't recall people pirating the games until like years and years later. But Dreamcast, you could pirate games day one. If you had a CD burner on your computer, you could definitely make something happen. So that alone made this a really, really good console to have. I mean, that's pretty bad, but you know, shit. It's like kids, we were cheap. We didn't have money. All right, GameCube. So let's see. Yeah, PlayStation 2 comes out, Dreamcast comes out, Nintendo 64 was already like not that great, and so once these consoles really hit the scene, Nintendo bit the dust. It couldn't hang with these consoles. So let's see. GameCube. So Nintendo releases GameCube, which has a lot of great games on it. But to me, GameCube was very lackluster. It was probably the game system that I did not buy from Nintendo. I remember my cousin, he had a GameCube, but you know, there was okay games on it. It had, you know, Melee, which is arguably the best Smash Brothers game. But aside from that, there was nothing on GameCube that I really wanted. Like I was a fan of Star Fox 64, and GameCube had the follow-up. I can't remember what it was called, another Star Fox game, but I remember when I played it, it wasn't the same. It felt different. It felt weird. So yeah, had Metroid Prime. Yeah. I mean, and don't get me wrong, you know, GameCube, it was a fun system, but I had more fun with these other systems. Like I had more fun with PlayStation 2. I had more fun with Dreamcast. But yeah, nothing on GameCube like really stood out for me. Even the Mario games, because I remember, what did they have? They had Super Mario Sunshine, and I remember I was like, man, what the fuck is this? And then they had, what other Mario games did they have on GameCube? Because it's slipping my mind right now. But I remember I didn't spend a lot of time playing GameCube outside of Melee. Okay, let's see. Xbox. So you said Strikers? Nobody was playing Strikers. Super Mario Sunshine was awesome. I remember I played maybe an hour of it. It didn't feel like Super Mario 64, so I was like, I'm done. Luigi's Mansion? I remember Luigi's Mansion looked cool from the magazines and from whatever stuff that was available that we seen, but Yeah, I didn't want it. Now, Twilight Princess. Twilight Princess came at the end of the GameCube life cycle, and so by then I think I was already looking at the Wii U, or I mean the Wii instead. You know, I wasn't interested in GameCube by then. Let me see. Twin Snakes. There was no point in playing Twin Snakes. If you played the PlayStation versions of Metal Gear Solid 1 and 2, you know, you didn't really care for it. And that's how I was. When they announced Twin Snakes, I was like, I don't care. Xbox. So I remember Xbox came out. It was a very dope system. Lots and lots of cool games on it. Microsoft is making it splash. Definitely ranked at A tier. It took some of the best qualities of what Nintendo was offering as far as the multiplayer support and great variety of games, and they put it in their system, and they offered online. Halo was a big deal. Halo was a big fucking deal for this game. I mean, for this console. So yeah, I put Xbox up there in A tier. Great system. Let me see. Sega Nomad. That was another handheld by Sega. That was like the Sega Genesis on handheld. Ranked that down here in C tier because by the time Sega Nomad came out, nobody cared about it. Game Boy Advance. I ranked this right here in B tier. Game Boy Advance was okay. It wasn't like I think by the time Game Boy Advance was out, I didn't care too much for handhelds. Let me see. We already did 3DO. You did the SNK handheld. Crap. Nobody wanted it. All right, what else? N-Gage? I vaguely remember this Nokia N-Gage system. I can't remember anything about it, but I'll rank this down here at crap or trash because I can't remember what it was, but Nokia went on to make phones. So, all right, I guess we're moving on to the next generation, which would be Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3 and the Wii. Just Madness, what's up, man? Welcome on into the stream. All right, let me see, because I can't make this stuff out. All right, what is this? Is this no? That's a PlayStation 2. All right, Xbox 360. Xbox 360, I'll rank it right here as B. It did exactly what the original Xbox did. Just, you know, better graphics, more online capabilities, great games on it, but you know, I didn't really care for it. I wasn't excited for this system. It was just another system. I think this is kind of, I think at this point, my taste in gaming was slowly starting to change because I was becoming less and less excited for the consoles that were coming out. Because I remember, you know, I was slightly excited for Xbox 360, but I didn't really too much care for it. Like, it wasn't a system that I felt like I had to have. And yes, there were a lot of good games for it. Mainly the Gears of War series. But yeah, ranked it right down here in B tier. It was okay. PlayStation 3. Let me see, where is it at? PlayStation 3. When this dropped, everybody was excited for it. Everybody was like, yo, PlayStation 3 is out. I gotta have it. Everybody was excited except me. And granted, it did exactly what it was supposed to do. It was a great follow-up for the PlayStation 2. More games, great variety, better graphics. But I didn't care for it. So B tier. It was okay. I think the mid 2000s, like from like 2007 and up, was like a weird place for gamers, because a lot of game companies were coming out with, like, they just followed this pattern: release a new game console just with better graphics, and we're gonna suck people in with how good these graphics look, and these video games that are like movies. So yeah, so PlayStation 3, Xbox 360, they were all great consoles, but they followed that formula of just better graphics and I guess sequels and follow-ups to game franchises that everyone knows. But there was like this lack of innovation. And that's where Nintendo steps in. So Nintendo decides to be innovative, and they released the Wii. Now, I think we all knew, like, when we seen the Wii come out, everybody was like, what the hell is this? Because it was announced that the Wii wasn't going to be as powerful as the 360 or PlayStation 3. But Nintendo, they were being innovative. They were like, you know what? We got nunchuck controls and shit. And I think that, you know, they did a good job with that. Because for me, I'm gonna have to rank this as A tier. I think the Wii, it did kind of struggle with its selection of games, but the games that they offered on there were hella fun. And for me and my family, this was like one of the first consoles, aside from the Nintendo 64, that everyone in my family could play. I have a large family. There's like, you know, I have 6 siblings and, you know, my parents. And this was probably one of the first consoles where my mom and my dad actually participated in playing the games, because they could pick up the motion controls and it was easy for them to play the games. And so I had a lot of fun with the Wii, mainly because everyone could get involved. And I have to give Nintendo props for trying to be more innovative than the other studio or other developers that were out there. And that's only why it gets points. It gets points for the motion controls and being innovative. It gets that notch up to A tier. But if it didn't have those, it would have been just like all the other consoles, and it would have been down here on the B tier, probably even lower. Because although the graphics on the Nintendo games couldn't measure up, they were still fun. Like, and even to this day, I will say this: Nintendo knows how to make fun games. You don't buy a Nintendo system because of the graphics, but you buy a Nintendo system because they have great composers and they know how to make some fun fucking games. All right, anyway, so let's see. Where are we at now? And I think by this time, all the other like third-party developers, well, they're not third-party developers, but you know, companies like Nokia, Philips, or Atari, whoever is making all these other systems, they were like done. Nobody was competing with Sony, Microsoft, or Nintendo anymore. Even Sega dropped out of the race after the Dreamcast. So right now we got the big 3: Sony, Microsoft, and Nintendo. They're the only ones making consoles. Let me see. Nintendo had the Nintendo DS. Nintendo DS was good. I'll put this in A tier. Great selection of games, very fun, nice color pad. Just really, really good. I didn't own one personally, but my brother, siblings, they had one, and the games and everything I played on there are like really, really good. Very, very good, high quality handheld system. And I think that was like one of the areas that Nintendo excelled at. PlayStation did the PSP. I'll rank that up there as A tier as well, because the PSP, Vita, just very, very good handheld game systems. All right, let's get back to these consoles. And y'all can leave your thoughts in the chat. Let me know, what you think about this tier list, and then your tier list as well. All right. I guess I'll go ahead and put the PS Vita right here. It's like the same, just upgraded version of the PSP. All right, all right, so we're moving on past PlayStation 3. We're doing the Xbox. Did we do the 360 already? That was the original Xbox. Okay, yeah, we did do it 360. Let me see, Xbox One. Xbox One, B tier. I mean, the Xbox consoles have always been just like okay. They have great games, but by this time I was already PC gaming. By the time Xbox One dropped, I was already PC gaming, and that was kind of like the nail in the coffin for consoles for me. Oh, you said Xbox One sucked? I didn't think it sucked because it still had a good variety of games. But the only thing was during this period of time in gaming, none of the consoles were doing anything that the other one couldn't do. The only thing that was differentiating them were exclusives. PlayStation 4. Let me see. B tier. PlayStation 4 was good enough. As I said, there was really no difference between PlayStation 4 and Xbox One. You can get the same third-party games. The only difference was exclusives and better graphics. But I didn't get the same magic. I didn't get the same feeling from when the PlayStation 2 or even PlayStation 1 was dropping, or even the Super Nintendo or Dreamcast or any of these other games. I think like gamers kind of felt less and less excited about these consoles. Unless you were like a child and this was like your first game console, then you would be super excited about it. But y'all let me know. Y'all let me know like if you were excited for PlayStation 4, because when I seen it, there really wasn't any games on it that I was truly excited for. But also we're reaching this weird point in gaming where graphics have kind of reached this point of diminishing returns, where a game could have good graphics, but then the story or the gameplay was shit. And that's what they were trying to sell you on. Like, look at this game. Ooh, look at these graphics. But then the gameplay was crap. And granted, there were a lot of good games on PlayStation 4, but it was almost like they could still have been on PlayStation 3. Let me see. We already did Xbox 360, Xbox One. Where's the Xbox S? Xbox One S. Same thing. B tier. Nothing special. Nothing special about Xbox One S. All right, where was the other one? PlayStation Pro. B tier. PlayStation Pro, same thing as PlayStation 4. It's just faster. Nothing special about it. You said it was PlayStation 4 was a jet engine? What, it was loud? I never owned PlayStation 4. So I don't know like the specifics, how it was when it played, if it got hot or if it was loud. But you said 1S or one Series S is holding generation back. What do you mean by that? All right. So, let me see. We have Xbox One, PlayStation 4, Xbox One S, and PlayStation 4 Pro, all in B tier. As I said, B tier isn't bad, but it's just like right there. It's good enough. Like with the Sega Genesis and Neo Geo. They have good games. It's a decent console. You'll play it, but for me, they weren't systems that I was truly excited about. All right, let me see what else. Ouya. Now I do remember this. What is a Ouya? Was the Ouya like a PC in a box or something? It was like a cube. It was like a cube PC, a gaming PC or something. I remember it was crap. All right, let me see. Wii U. Nintendo follows up the Switch with Wii U. I don't know. I think the Wii U was kind of like a... they got rid of the motion controls, and then they had this big giant fucking tablet. And I don't know. It was just weird. Yeah, and then they didn't have that many games. So yeah, Wii U, crap. I didn't care for the Wii U. And then the name. They named it Wii U. Like, why? Why would they call it a Wii U? What good games were on the Wii U? Somebody let me know. Aside from Mario. Because, at this point, every time Nintendo releases a Mario game, all the Mario games are like really, really good. Nintendo never fails with Mario. But I can't remember any good games that were on the Wii U. Or any games on the Wii U. I don't know. Weird. Yeah, it's crap. All right, yeah, so Wii U gets C tier. All right, what else? On Live for cloud gaming. Now you know what? On Live was ahead of its time. I had a subscription to On Live when it first dropped, and I remember I wrote a report in college about cloud gaming, and I will put On Live as S tier. Because cloud gaming is the future. And unfortunately, On Live didn't catch on because nobody knew about it. Like, nobody knew about it and they didn't understand the possibilities or whatever. But I feel like if more people knew about cloud gaming at the time, On Live would have been hella popular. But people still didn't want to let go of consoles. Because by the time On Live came out, it had a great selection of games that were available on there. It was literally like Netflix for gaming. It was using the architecture of what all Game Pass and PlayStation Now or PlayStation Plus use right now. It was the exact same thing. And this was like in the early, maybe 2011 or 2012 or something like that. So for me, On Live definitely gets S tier, mainly because it was ahead of its time. I think ultimately, Sony bought them when they went bankrupt, and just used their technology. Like, that's what they use right now to run PlayStation Now or PlayStation Plus. Okay, what else? All right, I'm not gonna count these like 2DS, XL, 3DSs and shit because it's kind of redundant. PlayStation 5. Okay. PlayStation 5 B tier. Now, I know that everybody was trying to get their hands on PlayStation 5 back when COVID happened, mainly because it's PlayStation 5. They advertised it was no load times, better graphics, and all this other blah, 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 blah. More of the same. A lot of the PlayStation 5 games look like they can run off on a PlayStation 4. To me, as I said, where graphics have reached like this diminishing returns, there's nothing truly special about PlayStation 5. 4K graphics, and that was the other thing. I think that PlayStation 5 was designed so that they could allow people to play 4K graphics more consistently. Although the PlayStation 4 Pro allowed 4K graphics, but this time it was like no load time. To me, PlayStation 5 didn't have that jump from the 4 the same way that other consoles had jumps in either innovation and graphics. And you just think about what the consoles that we've already talked about, like Nintendo, and the jump from Nintendo to Super Nintendo was like, wow, what the fuck? The jump from SNES to N64, from 2D to 3D, wow, oh my god. The jump from PlayStation 1 to PlayStation 2, oh my goodness gracious, look at these graphics, look at this is so fun. The jump from PlayStation 2 to, I don't know, PlayStation 3 or the innovation of Wii. But you think about your jump from PlayStation 4 to PlayStation 5, it's almost like the same console. So that's what I see it as. I really didn't see a difference between PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 5 except for no load times. So B tier. It was good, or it's good enough. Maybe the PlayStation 6, if they make one, will be like a huge jump. The jump that people are looking for. The jump that will get gamers excited again. Because right now, I don't think gamers are truly excited for anything that's coming out. You said, they say PlayStation 5 is 5 times stronger than the 4, and I call bullshit. I agree. It doesn't look 5 times stronger. It looks like the same console with just no load times. So, you know, and 4K gaming, 60 frames a second, but the console still overheats. So, take it as that. The Switch. Oh man. As I said, Nintendo, they know how to innovate. They know how to make a good game console with tons and tons of variety. I have to put the Switch up here in S tier. As I said, you don't buy Nintendo consoles for the graphics. I don't own a Switch. I have it on emulation. But for my family members that do own the Switch, and when I've gone over there and played games with them, we have more fun playing Switch than Xbox S and PlayStation 5. Nintendo they know how to make. Nintendo knows how to innovate, and they know how to make games and consoles that everyone can enjoy. And for a lot of consoles, I do enjoy a single player experience or even online experience, but I find a lot more enjoyment when I can play with my family members. And Switch knows how to do it. They make games for everyone, so. And there's a great selection of games. Like Switch has huge selection of RPGs and, you know, other styles of games. Let me see. I think that might be it. Oh, no. All right, Steam Deck or Steam Link? What? Okay, they do have Steam Deck. I don't know what a Steam Link is. Steam Deck, I guess it's a portable handheld PC. I don't care for it. Crap. All right, see you later, man. Thanks for hanging out. Computer. Oh man, this was easy. This was easy. Let me see. Let me scroll up here. Computer gaming. Let me move this up here. Easy S tier. PC gaming. Easy S tier. As I said, I started building computers maybe by PlayStation 3, whenever that came out. What was that? 2013, 2012 or something? Once I built my first computer and I started PC gaming, that was it. Like, matter of fact, no. I was PC gaming like before that, because my dad, he, like, we never had a computer when I was a kid, but I remember when my dad, he brought home, like, he got this computer from his job, and it was a really, really good computer. And we had like the games on there and everything, which were fun, but that was like my introduction into PC gaming, playing like Command and Conquer, Warcraft, and games like that. Like my brother was really big into Warcraft, and anybody who PC gamed, like the feel and the style of PC games were completely different in console games. They had like the point and click games, or like Myst, or Grim Fandango, and they were interesting. Like PC games were truly unique. They were very, very unique, and you would have a completely different experience than consoles. But consoles still had they still had the style of games that most gamers like to play until the mid 2000s. By the mid 2000s, you literally could play any type of console game on a PC, and that's when I completely checked out of consoles, because whatever was offered on the consoles, I could find the same style of game on PC. And when you get into the culture of, when you learn how to upgrade RAM and memory and the storage and everything, like, it was just a no-brainer on top of emulation. Because when I got a powerful enough PC, I could emulate all these systems and then buy the controllers for it. And it only got worse as the years went on. PCs just got stronger. And so I think for a lot of PC gamers, you kind of checked out from the console wars. And maybe that's why I feel so indifferent about PlayStation 3, 4, and 5. Because, the graphics and all the games that they had on there, I could get the same experience on PC gaming. But then there was also the different styles of games that they had, because they start having games like World of Warcraft, or what were they, the massive online RPGs. Yeah, you have that. You have Dota, League of Legends, Ragnarok. I mean, the list goes on. There were just tons and tons of PC games, that the variety of stuff that was offered on PCs. So yeah, easy S tier. And right now, it's like, now the consoles are turning into PCs. Yeah, MMOs. And because that's something that I've noticed throughout the years. Now, like, PlayStation 3 was like, oh, we're going to offer Netflix, or we're going to offer online, like you can surf the internet. Wii U, same thing. Oh, you can surf the internet. You can log into our Nintendo website. Xbox, oh, you can surf the internet. You can watch Netflix. We have Game Pass, all this other shit. The consoles literally turned into PCs. And if you had a PC already, it was like, what do I need this shit for? Because now graphics aren't a big deal. And going into the future, streaming is going to be the big deal. So let me see. Was there anything that I missed? TurboGrafx 16. So, or maybe it was the Genesis. They just called it something else. But put that as C tier. What is this? PlayStation Small Mini? Same thing. The 3DO, we already ranked that. The Game Boy SP, I don't know what that is. Okay, I guess these are all duplicates. Gizmodo, I don't know what that is. Oh, Stadia. Stadia was the Google thing, online streaming. I did have Stadia, or I did have Stadia subscription. I thought it was pretty good, but unfortunately nobody subscribed to it, so they decided to shut it down. But you know, once again, it was cloud gaming, a little bit ahead of their time. Let's see, Neo Geo X, PlayStation 4, PlayStation TV. Don't know anything about that PlayStation TV. That's weird. They actually had a console for that? Switch OLED. Okay, yeah. Yeah, and I guess all of these are just like extra add-ons and shit that, you know, like Switch OLED, like the original Switch is fine. Okay, all right. So let me see. For S tier, we have the original Nintendo Entertainment System. We have the original Game Boy, the Sony PlayStation, which was like a huge jump in graphics and gameplay innovation. PlayStation 2, oh man, yeah, another great system. And PlayStation 2, I really give them props because of their diversity and versatility in games. Like just so many different types of games available on PlayStation, and just a huge upgrade and improvement from the original PlayStation system, especially with load times. S tier I also give for OnLive, mainly because they were the first company to really start doing cloud gaming, which is the future, and that they were ahead of their time. Nintendo Switch, definitely just Nintendo being innovative, not being afraid to stepping out and doing something different regardless of criticism. As we've all seen throughout the years, all these other game companies, they're scared to do things, they're scared to be risky, because they don't want to piss people off. But Nintendo has never gave a fuck. Nintendo has always done their own thing. And we have PC, all S tier. A tier, we got Super Nintendo, which phenomenal system. Should be it. Super Nintendo should be S tier, but I don't want to put too many Nintendo systems in S tier. There's nothing bad I can think about or say with Super Nintendo. Just a great overall good system. Dreamcast, A tier because you could pirate their games. Xbox, just revolutionary for its time, especially with the online gameplay. Nintendo Wii, A tier, definitely gets points for being innovative with the motion controls, and the same with the handhelds with the DS, PlayStation Plus, and Vita. All right, guys, that's gonna be my list. So y'all let me know what y'all think about my list, but you can also let me know what you think what are your S tier systems, or some of the greatest systems in your gaming history, or your gaming childhood or career, or what have you. But I'm gonna go ahead and get up out of here and get me some grub. You said, how is OnLive above SNES? OnLive is above SNES because the technology that it had was revolutionary. It was just, and I only feel this way because of when I first experienced OnLive and seeing that I could play a AAA game with the best graphics at 1080p. It was at, like, you could point and click and the game loads up just as fast as a Netflix movie. At the time when that technology came out, it was completely unheard of. Nobody had ever done anything like that. And so, yes, as a gamer, I was completely blown away, but also the library of games that they had, because there were a lot of games on live, and you could just pay the subscription, point and click, choose your game, and game for hours. But as I said, they went under because nobody knew about it. Nobody knew about it, and they weren't making enough money. But it is what it is. You said they don't have Chrono Trigger. Oh, you're right. You know what? Oh man, Joshua Carlos, you were absolutely right. See, and this is what I was talking about, how you guys can influence my choices. Oh no, what happened? Okay, there we go. All right, yes. So because of that, because Joshua Carlos just mentioned that, On Live has been moved down to A tier, and Super Nintendo has been moved up to S tier because of one game. One game has changed this whole thing, which is Chrono Trigger. Arguably the greatest game to have ever been created. Created by the Dream Team. Character designs by Akira Toriyama. Rest in peace. Chrono Trigger alone carries the Nintendo not only from A tier to S tier, but all the way to the front, ahead of the original Nintendo. So there we have it. Number one gaming console of all time, the Super Nintendo. The Super Nintendo is the number one gaming console of all time. It beats out the PlayStation, it beats out PlayStation 2, Xbox, it beats out PlayStation 5 for its versatility, variety of games, colors, music, and then of course, Chrono Trigger, the greatest RPG to have ever been created. Anyway, guys, thank y'all so very much for hanging out with me tonight. Go ahead and smash that like button. If you would like me to do more tier listings, let me know down below in the comment section. But for those of y'all who are hanging out with me tonight, I hope you had some fun. Hope you enjoyed yourselves. And I'll see y'all later. Go ahead and give me some grub. Peace.